Hi, hope you're doing really well. My name is Tom. I am a professional composer for TV and film, and a few months ago, the lovely people at Steinberg reached out to me because they wanted me to write a demo track for their latest virtual instrument, Xstream. Now, you can hear that track on their platforms. I'll have them linked below. Xstream is primarily a spectral synthesizer, but it has a whole bunch of time stretching capabilities, as well as the option to drag in your own samples to it and run it through its engine. So it's pretty packed with cool features. For full disclosure, this isn't a review and I have not been told what to say. The team at Steinberg just wanted me to be able to demonstrate how I've been utilizing Xstream for the demo track that I wrote for it, and I thought the best way to do that would be doing a track breakdown, because A, it shows you how I've used that specific plugin, but also more details about my workflow in general. I feel it's important to mention as well that I'm not a particularly tech savvy composer. I get very overwhelmed with anything that I don't understand immediately in terms of its interface and all of that, but the team at Steinberg wanted me to use it as a composer would. You know, if you download a new piece of software, you're not going to have a profound understanding of all of the intricacies of what it's capable of. And the important thing, for me at least as a composer, is that the tools that we download for music creation have to be able to inspire something without necessarily understanding the depths of what it can do. So I treated Xstream exactly as I would treat any free software download that you can get online, where I just loaded it into my DAW, started playing around to see if it would spark anything, and luckily it did. So this is the project file for the demo track I created. Everything that is bright pink is Xstream. Now, as I'm primarily an ambient and neoclassical composer, most of my tracks begin with some sort of ambience or texture or drone, and this was no exception. So I went through a bunch of presets and found one that I thought sounded quite nice and at least gave enough harmonic information for me to add on to it. So I started with this sound, which is lovely and big. You know, that could be a track in and of itself. So I bounced out a 2-minute section of that drone and just did a bit of EQ to it, and I cut out a lot of the low end because it's very, very bassy and in your face, and I wanted it to be a bit more subtle. So that became this. So it retains that sort of huge epic vibe, but it's just a little bit more tame. And then the way the track progressed is I just bounced out that file and then started improvising on the piano over the top. I used 4 microphones on the piano in total, 2 Coles and 2 Neumann KM184s, and just sort of improvised until I found a chord progression that I felt worked. Then a fairly typical thing for me where I'll record the octave above and throw that through a long reverb. So that's how the track started. One drone and then the piano progression playing on top of it. So I have this foundation, and that's when the fun starts, because that's when I get to really like experiment with what I want the track to do. Now, the first thing that I wanted to address after getting the piano in was the fact that the drone was kind of a placeholder in many ways. It was just a bed for me to write on top of, and I needed it to be a bit more than it was. The first and most obvious step for me in terms of enhancing the atmospheres of the track was to record the cello and then put the cello through Xstream. So I recorded these 3 very simple cello notes. literally just the octaves and the fifth. Once I had those cello parts recorded, I would initialize Extreme, then take cello drone 1 and drag it into place. Now it automatically has the speed on 5, but this is a really long audio file, so I need to crank that up to 100, which is basically the default playback speed. So now there's a whole load of stuff going on there that isn't in the original sample, and a lot of it's due to this blur stuff here. So if I drag this down and then the blur depth down, and then add some reverb and delay, my usual thing. It's getting there, but I want the high frequency shimmer to come through. And I did that with each of the cellos. So it changed the drones from sounding like this to sounding like this. Bit of side chaining going on there because of the percussion. So those were the cello drones, and then I knew that I wanted the track to weave between different sections that demonstrated different things. So the opening is much more ambient, but then it develops into more of like a down tempo track with a beat that's taken away and then comes back at the very end. So after all of this nice ambient swirliness that has been going on, we get a bit more substance. I bring in a bunch of percussion and it sounds like this. I wanted nice, chill, down-tempo percussion, so it's really simple, basically just a kick and a snare with some Foley sound design over the top. And this is one of those times that I just went preset diving on Extreme to find something cool that I could manipulate into this big sound, and so I found this preset called Dance Floor. Pretty massive sounding, but I remember just liking that, especially because it wasn't really in the same tempo as the track, and I kind of wanted it to be a bit sloppy. And in this section specifically, because it's the first big section of the track, I kind of wanted to show off as many things as possible. So I've got all of these extra little bits of Extreme. Again, I have to just reiterate this. I am not good and I don't have the patience for learning complicated things. So all of these sounds I would find I just load it up, play around with the presets, or I'd drag my own sounds in and just see what made me be like, oh yeah, that's quite cool. I'm going to put that in somewhere. So there was this really cool like bubbly synth ARP that I threw in, and that's a preset called Upstream, which without any of the effect on sounds like this. Pretty cool. It's weirdly soothing, but then just add a little bit of delay and reverb. I thought it would sound like something was like floating off. And it comes in here as well. So I used that a couple of times, as well as 2 examples of the preset Suspense. And that literally has got no effect on it at all. It's literally just a preset that I dragged in. I should probably have EQ'd it a little bit. But somehow that works in the context of things. Like if I took it out here, but if I put it in, it just sort of fleshes it out alongside this instance of the same thing, but I gave this a bit of rhythm and a bit of additional fizzle on top. And so together they sound like this. That sounds aggressively bad by itself. I'm astonished that I must have just forgotten to actually EQ this one. I think it's because this note somehow that works. And there are a few other little interesting things that I threw in from Extreme here as well. So I've got an instance of one of the presets called Water Gong, which is just this like super like metallic-y slow attack bell sound. Then I bounced that out and reversed it going into itself. So you get this kind of really nice slow build tail into that sort of drop moment. And there are two other reverses as well. One is a preset called Bucket List. Much more aggressive. And then Frozen Bell Toy, quite nice. So then after that larger section, it kind of comes down again. So I did a whole bunch of automation to various aspects of the drones throughout the track, because this is the thing that a lot of people don't realize, is that a drone has to evolve and change. You can't just have it sounding exactly the same all the time, even if you don't instinctively notice filtering changes happening. If you don't put them in, it just makes it so boring. So I had everything filter down for this sort of brief bit of respite. And there are two higher cello samples that then come in. Exactly the same thing that I did with the previous ones, but these drones initially sound like this. But through Extreme and its spectral filter and all of that, sounds like this. They've gone from sounding so like in your face and dry to just having all of this room to breathe. It's lovely. It's greeted by a bell that I just wanted to echo out, so that's the preset Ominous Chime. And then we go back into a bit of rhythm for this sort of like closing out section. But the percussion is actually a lot more simple in this section. It's literally just kick and snare. That's because the thing that's giving the percussion its movement is this right here, another instance of that suspense patch. So that with the percussion here. I think I automated like a pitch bend in there. In terms of other elements in the track, there are a few reversed piano notes here and there. And then a glockenspiel one as well. A few rises and sub drops, and then yeah, I recorded my sub 25 for this like kind of like deep sub bass, which is basically all I ever used the sub 25 for. I wonder what it would sound like if I muted everything except the Extreme elements. That's pretty much everything, really. Oh, there's this stuff up here, actually. I forgot about that. These are more drones, but they have a bit more rhythm to them. Another one of the presets that I quite liked, but again, I liked it as this like minimal thing. You're not listening to it, but it's enhancing the sonic experience of what you're listening to, if that makes sense. I know that's such like generic wanky producer chat. What does this preset sound like without any of this on it? Yeah, I think I heard the potential for this like blippy bloopy thing going on. I imagine I EQ'd out quite a few of the actual notes. Yeah, I've got some like proper surgical EQs removing notes that weren't quite in key in the way that I liked. Bit of low end removal and a lot of soothe. Was it really that glassy before? But it's nice finding these sounds that are like in the realm that you're looking for and just seeing what you can then do to them. But yeah, that's basically the track. I really like the long echo on that bell. That's probably my favorite sound, I think. There's something I just really liked about that sound. So yeah, that's how I wrote and produced the demo track for Extreme. My only criticism really, if I was gonna think of something, is I think a lot of the presets were really dense, and this is maybe an issue with me because I like sparse stuff, and some of the presets, they had so much going on immediately, like brilliantly sound designed and sculpted, but some of them it was a bit like hearing a finished track, and then it's hard to try and find a place in your own production to slot that into. I mean, the thing I enjoyed the most was the ability to throw my own samples into something that I didn't really understand and just sort of let whatever happens happen. But like I said before, for me, the most important thing in music creation is something's ability to inspire. And I've always found that having some software that enables you to basically just hold down one note to provide your initial texture, even if you then go on to like replace it or add other things on top of it, that's something that I personally value a lot with this sort of thing. But yeah, anyway, that's how I produced the demo track for Steinberg. And like I said, I'll have a link down there where you can go and hear it. I'll have all my like socials and music links down in the description as well. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have or if you haven't, and any questions or queries or comments you may have, chuck them down there and I'll get back to you. Big shout out to Steinberg, especially Florian. It was, a privilege to be asked to contribute to a project like this, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon.